Hey all, welcome back to my channel. For today's Pilates class, you'll want one of these booty bands or resistance loop bands, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to start by sitting down and wrap it around our thighs. So this class is going to give you a real glute burn and a real ab burn. So when you're ready, we're going to start by lying on our mat. Our feet are going to be roughly hip distance apart and planted into the floor. The feet are going to be quite close to the hips, so you can almost reach them with the hands. And then we're just going to start with some pelvic rocks. So I want you to think of sinking that belly button down into the floor as you exhale. And then inhale, just tip that pelvis away from you. Just going for some small little rocks forwards and backwards with the pelvis. A small movement, you can barely see it here. Just think of keeping that ribcage still and isolating the movement through those hips. As you exhale, think of tipping that pubic bone up towards the sternum. And then inhale, tip that pubic bone away from you. On our next exhale, we sink the belly button, we press through those heels, and this time we lift up with those glutes. The hips hover just off the floor, and then lowering those hips back down towards the mat. Keep going with that, just a couple inches off the floor each time. Think of those inner thighs staying active, those knees tracking forwards, and that ribcage still staying sinking down into the mat. We're keeping those shoulders pressing down into the floor, pressing those palms down. Again, just isolating through the lower back. And we'll slowly lift this up a little further each time, working through that spine. And we're slowly building up towards that glute bridge. Mobilizing through the spine one vertebrae at a time, so each time making those rocks a little bit bigger, growing taller through that glute bridge. I want you to think about moving one vertebrae at a time, so really tucking under with that pelvis, lifting with the glutes. The rest of the back follows. Those heels are staying grounded and helping you engage more through those hamstrings, through those glutes. Sinking the belly button each time before you lift, rolling up, squeezing the glutes at the top of the movement, and then melting the spine back down in towards the mat. We'll go for our last one, tucking under with the pelvis, pressing through those heels, rolling up through the spine, inner thighs active, arms staying grounded. And then we hold this last one at the top. And then we're going to open those knees wide, close them back into parallel. We open, roll onto the outsides of the feet, draw those knees back towards each other. And again, open wide with those knees, squeezing out into the band, and then slowly draw those knees in towards each other. We'll go for one more, keeping those hips nice and high, and then gently rolling down through the spine, coming to settle on the mat again. When you're ready, we're going to exhale, sink the belly button, roll up through the spine, find the top of that glute bridge, and then roll back down through the spine again. Exhale, sink the belly button, lift through those glutes, press through those heels, find that glute bridge. This time as we melt the spine, we're going to lift those arms, reach towards the sky and overhead, and then draw those arms back down by your side as you lift through those hips, roll up through the spine. So we're working through this. The arms are counterbalancing the body. We're stretching out through the body as you reach those arms overhead. And then as you reach those arms down towards the mat, think of that nice diagonal line from the head towards the knees. Think of moving through each vertebrae, and this should feel really good on your spine. Our last one, we're going to hold this last one at the top, find that glute bridge, make sure those hips are lifted high. And then we're going to open those knees out again, this time finding that pulsing movement, squeezing out into the band. Out and out and out, knees in opposite directions. Hips are staying stable and still, arms are staying grounded. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Draw them back in. We're going to lift through that right leg and then lower the right foot back down. Lower those hips as you lift those arms overhead. Feel the opening of the shoulders at the top and then reach back up. Find that glute bridge, lift through the other side, left leg, draw it back down. Lift those arms overhead as you lower those hips. And then draw those arms back down by your side as you lift through those hips, go back to the right leg again. So we're aiming to keep both of those hips stable, even as one leg lifts. We're aiming to keep those hips at the same height. And we're using that resistance of the band. So I want you to think of controlling the landing of the leg just as much as the reach up of that knee. And those arms, as we reach overhead, I want you to still think of keeping that rib cage down. So we're trying not to flare through the rib cage. We're trying to keep the heart sinking down towards the mat. while still working that shoulder mobility, finding a little more range each time if you can. And really focus on melting that spine in towards the mat each time as you roll down through the spine. Our last one here, we're going to roll up, hold it at the top. We'll lift through those heels and then lower the heels back down. So staying grounded through all those toes, especially the big toes. We lift, we rise, and then lower against some resistance. After this next one, we'll switch over. We're going to lift through those toes and the balls of the feet and then draw them back down. This time we're driving through those heels, maybe feeling more engagement through the hamstrings and the glutes, still keeping those hips high. Working through that whole ankle range, not just the toes, but that whole ankle. And then we can roll back down gently through the spine, the hips landed back on the floor. We're going to reach those arms towards the ceiling, palms facing the front of the room. And then we'll lift both legs up towards this tabletop position as we draw those arms down by our sides parallel to the floor. As we exhale, inhale, lower the torso, reach those arms back overhead, lower the feet. Exhale, we lift, we reach. Inhale, lower the torso, reach those arms overhead. So each time we lift up and reach, I want you to think of drawing the lower ribs down towards the hips, down towards those hip bones. We're sinking that belly button down and drawing everything down and in, almost like you're gliding your rib cage down towards your belly, down towards the pockets of your trousers. And use that breath. Make that exhale long and audible. Exhale out through the mouth, and then inhale through the nose as you lower back down. This next one, we lift, we hold it at the top, we reach those hands behind the head, interlace those fingers, tap those right toes down, bring it back up. Switch, tap those left toes down, bring it up, back up. So inhale through the nose as you tap those toes away. Exhale, draw that knee back to tabletop. We're trying to keep those shoulder blades lifted. We're looking between those inner thighs. Again, we're fighting that resistance of the resistance band. Aiming to keep the angle behind the knees at roughly 90 degrees. Just a light toe touch to draw back in. Keep the belly button sinking down. Keep the chest lifted. Then option, if you want, we can switch, extend that leg fully away and draw it back in. Alternating the leg each time, reaching those toes all the way towards that diagonal, draw it back in. So each time we extend that leg, find that full extension behind the back of that knee and then draw back in. Obviously, the lower you go with this leg, the harder it will be. If you need, maybe reach that leg straight up towards the sky. Just as long as we keep that lower back connection with the mat, sinking the belly button down. The next time we extend with that right leg, we're going to hold it there. We're going to drift the leg all the way up towards the sky and then drift it back down. So lifting and lowering through this right side, keeping the torso completely still. Again, remembering shoulder blades lifted, belly button sinking. Leg comes back to tabletop, we'll switch over to the left leg, extend it away, lift all the way to the sky and then draw it back down. Keep the breath going, exhaling each time through the mouth, inhaling through the nose. And keeping that whole extended leg active, really feeling it through the quad, through that hip flexor, use that strength. And then draw that leg back to tabletop. We're going to open those knees as we inhale, exhale, draw them back to parallel. Now maybe you want to add an arm reach. Exhale, reach through the inner thighs as you open those knees. Inhale, lower the torso, reach to the sky. Exhale, lift and reach. Inhale, lower. Pressing out into the band each time. And then drawing those knees back together as you reach towards the sky. We keep this going. We lift, we open, we reach. We lower, we close. And again. Think again of the ribcage sinking down. Our last one, we hold it up there, we reach and pulse, pulsing up, reach towards those toes, lifting the shoulder blades each time, and then lower those hands on top of those knees. Use that to help lift your torso a little higher. We're going to extend one leg forwards, switch to the other leg. Each time the hands reach on top of the opposite knee, that knee that's coming in. We exhale to press on that knee, hold it there over towards the right. Keep reaching with those arms and pulsing towards the diagonal. Draw it back through the center, hands on top of the left knee, hands outside, pulsing up to the diagonal. Squeeze for 3, 2, 1. Draw it back through the center. Switch back to the right, pulsing up. For 3, 2, 1. Draw yourself again back through the center. Reach those hands to the outside, pulsing up. Reaching for 3, 2, 1. Through the center. Last time each side, over towards the right, pulsing for 3, 2, 1. Back through the center. Last one over towards the left. Reaching up, lift those shoulder blades. Back through the center. Lower that torso down. Lower those feet down towards the mat. Take a moment if you need to just readjust that band, just in case it's got a little twisted. But we're going to keep that band around our thighs, just above those knees. And then when you're ready, we're going to swivel around and come to lie on our side. We're going to have those feet at a 90-degree angle, so 90 degrees at the hip, 90 degrees at the knee. So the shins are roughly parallel with the edge of your mat. And we're going to rest our head on the underneath bicep. We're going to keep those hips stacked as we open the top knee out, draw it back down, and then lift the top foot out, draw it back down. So alternating between these. Now if you want to progress a little, we can go a little further. So this time as you open out that clamshell, we're going to lift the foot straight away as we lower the knee down towards the other knee, and then back again. So going for this internal rotation and then external rotation, alternating between the two. Should really be feeling this on the side of that glute. So going for that knee tap with the internal and then that toe tap with the external. Think of rotating from the hip, not just the knee. So getting the full rotation all the way down that leg. And then we can lower those toes. We'll keep that knee open, pulse it out, squeezing out into the band, opening. Focus on that mind to muscle connection. And then lower that knee down. We're going to lift that whole leg up and down, keeping it at that 90-degree angle. Working through the side of that glute still. For 2 more, and then on our next one, we're going to lift to hip height, extend that leg away, kick away, point through the toes, draw it back in. Flex as you kick that leg away, point the toes as you draw it back in over the underneath knee. So working in this extension and then drawing it back in. Finding that full range as you extend away, extending behind the back of that knee, feeling it in that glute as you step that leg down, almost like you're pushing something away from you, and then drawing it back in. We're aiming to keep that leg at roughly hip height the whole time. And our last one, we'll extend it away. We're going to point through those toes, rainbow that leg forwards and back, arching over towards the front of your mat and then towards the back. Imagine lifting up and over something like a big spike through the floor. So we're trying not to get too low. We're lifting up and over that rainbow shape, getting as much height as you can through the center, forwards and backwards. Again, fighting that resistance of the resistance band. Feeling the burn in the top of the leg, just breathing through it. And we're still bringing some awareness to the core. Our last one, we draw that leg all the way forwards over the underneath thigh. Drop those toes down towards the floor and then back up. Lowering and lifting. The next time we lift up, we're going to hold it there, point those toes towards the ground, drop it down, 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 small pulses downwards. And then lower that leg on top of the other one, tap off that glute if you need. And then pushing yourself up so that we can come to swivel round, facing sideways on our mat. We're going to extend that top leg away. Bring that underneath knee, underneath the hip, and then lift and lower through that top leg. Lifting as high as you can and then tapping all the way back down towards the mat. That underneath arm is keeping us supported. We're thinking of those hips staying stacked. And then we can lower that leg, twist around so we're on all fours. Our knees underneath our hips. We're going to tuck those toes, exhale as we lift those knees to hover off the floor. Inhale, tap them back down. Exhale, we lift. Inhale, we tap. So we're staying in this all 4 position, shoulders over wrists, hips over knees, and we're keeping that belly button pulling up. And now we can start to add on. So the next time you lift, we're going to open those knees out, draw them back to the center, and then lower those knees back down. So we lift, we open into that band, draw them back through the center, lower back down. So we're finding this external rotation as well, working through the sides of the glutes. Now we're going to hold it at the top, open out, pulse into the band, squeezing out and out and out. Keeping those knees hovering as we push back to downward dog And then rock forward, you're back in that hovered all fours. Open those knees and then push back to downward dog. Back to the all fours, open, close, downward dog. So moving between those two positions, pushing the floor away with those arms, strength through those arms. Hovering off the floor each time, using the breath to support your movement here. We'll go for our last one. And then bend those knees, come to this hovered box position. Step one leg back, step the other leg back, step the first leg back in, step the other leg back in. So alternating which side you start with each time. We're moving from this plank position to this all forward hovered box position. That resistance band is adding a little bit more here and making you work a little harder through the core, through those legs, through the glutes. The next time we're in that all fours, we're just going to hold it there and then push back to a downward dog position, sending those hips up to the sky. Just relax the head down, relax the neck, and push the chest through, pushing the floor away with those arms. And then we can bend through those knees, come back to our all fours position. We'll move through the spine now, so we're going to inhale, open up the chest, look to the sky, and then exhale, round through the spine, send the bum back towards the heels. Rock yourself forwards, inhale, open the chest, exhale, round through the spine, pull the belly button up, send the bum back to the heels. Just rocking forwards and backwards, mobilizing through the spine, using the breath to help support this movement. So inhaling one way as you open up the chest at the top, and then exhale as you round through the spine, get that nice curve, push the floor away as you sit backwards. Now we'll come into some glute work. So as you shift forward, we're going to find that all fours position, shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. We're going to open the right knee out towards the side, close it back in, then send it back behind you, draw it back down. So going for these external rotations, and then the glute kick back. So we open out with the knee to the side, and then think of sending the foot up towards the sky behind you. The whole time we're keeping the torso completely still. Gentle activation through the core, so gentle pull up with that belly button. And we're keeping those hips nice and stable, so we're not rocking side to side. They're pointing down directly at the mat. For our last one, we draw that knee back in. This time we're going to extend the leg back behind us. With a straight leg, we're going to flex through that foot, lift and lower that leg. So we exhale to lift, inhale to lower and tap. That leg is staying completely straight, so you're activating through the hamstring, through that glute to help lift that leg. Our last one, we hold at the top, bend that knee in, and then pulse up to the sky. We kick up and up and up, kick through the ceiling with that heel, and then extend that leg away, draw it back in. Reaching the heel away, drift it back in. So we're aiming to keep that thigh completely still. And we're just hinging from the knee downwards, extending that leg full extension and then drawing it back in. We're imagining we have a heavy weight on the end of our foot as we drag that heel all the way to the bum and then extend it away. So adding some resistance just with that mind to muscle connection. Our last one, we extend that leg away. We're going to point through those toes, flex through the foot. We point, we stretch that leg, we flex through the foot. So just working at the ankle joint here. Going for our last couple, we point and then flex. And then we can lower ourselves down to that left forearm. Open that right knee out, extend that leg away, bend it back in, and then lower down towards the mat. Just working through this a few times, really finding the full range of motion with that right leg. Reaching those toes as far away as you can. And lifting through the knee as high as you can. We're pushing down onto that underneath forearm to really keep that shoulder down away from that ear. And really feeling the resistance of that band. We can lower after the last one, come back into our all fours, and then move through that spine again. Inhale as we open up, look to the sky. Exhale as you round through the spine, send the bum back towards the heels. Inhale as you push the chest through. Exhale as you round through the spine. Inhale, shift forwards, open up the chest. Exhale, rounding forwards, sending your body backwards. this time sitting back on your heels, rolling up through the spine, and we can swivel ourselves around, come to face the other way. This time we'll be lying on our right side and we can work through the left glute. We're going to bring those legs to a 90-90 position, 90 degrees at the hip, 90 degrees at the knee, and then open out that clamshell and then swivel the legs so the knee touches the other knee. We touch the toes down and then shift, touch the knee down. So moving in that rotation, moving from the external rotation to the internal rotation. Think of rotating from the hip joint, not just the knee and the toes, but that whole leg, finding that rotation. We're staying lifted out of the underneath side of the waist, so try not to let the waist just relax down here. We're still keeping that core active. We hold the last one out, lift the knee up, pulsing to the sky, squeezing out, 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 out. And then we can drop the knee, lift the whole leg and lower, lift and lower, moving the leg as one unit. And then our next one, we lift it to hip height, we extend that leg away, push it away with that heel, draw it back in, point the toes. Flex the foot, kick away, point the toes, drift back in. As you kick that leg away, really squeeze through the leg, through the heel, through the thighs, and then point through the toes, draw it back in just as slowly. But adding that resistance with your movement, imagine moving through some mud or moving through honey as you send that leg away. And again, drift it all the way back in. We're going to go for a couple more like this, aiming to keep the leg at hip height, so try not to let it drop too low to the ground. The next time we drift away, we're going to extend and then point through the toes. We drift that leg up and over, touch the toes down and then drift it back, tapping the floor. Up and over, just like a rainbow shape, finding height with that hip each time. Going for these semicircle shapes forwards and backwards. We're still staying active through the core, trying not to dump all our weight into our lower waist. And we're relaxing our shoulders, relaxing the neck, trying not to bring too much tension to that part of the body. Our next one, we're going to hold it up there. We're going to drift the leg forwards, point those toes, and then drop the leg towards the mat, lift it back up. We inhale to tap, exhale to lift. This time, hold that leg at hip height, small pulses down. Small little drops. Keep that top foot floppy, pulsing towards the floor. And then draw it back in. Lift up so that we're on our side. We can come onto that right knee, that right hand, and then just bring that top hand towards the hip. We're going to lift that top leg up towards hip height and tap it back down. Exhale as we lift. Inhale as we tap. Keeping the length through that leg. Think of reaching those toes away from the head. And then lower that leg down. We can swivel ourselves around into our all fours position. We're going to exhale as we lift those knees up off the floor. Inhale, tap them back down. Keeping the belly button pulling up, pushing the floor away. We exhale to lift. Inhale, we tap. We'll go for one more lift and lower. This next one, as we lift up, we open those knees out, close them back in, and then lower the knees back down. So adding that external rotation, opening out into the band before you then lower back down. So we lift, we open, we squeeze back, draw back down. Just finishing off our last one, and then we can send those hips up to the sky, downward dog. Lower those knees back to that hover, open those knees out, close them back in, downward dog. So moving between the downward dog and then that hovered open and close of the knees. Those shoulders staying strong the whole time. Using that breath, inhaling and exhaling whenever you feel like you need. And then we can lower those knees all the way down, moving through the spine. Or inhale, open up through the chest. Exhale, round through the spine, send the hips back to the heels. Rock your weight forwards. Inhale, open up, push the chest through. Exhale, round through the spine, pull the belly button up. Sit back on your heels. Rounding forwards, opening with the chest. We inhale, exhale, rounding through the spine, sitting back. Moving forwards, articulating through the spine to come into our all fours, opening out with that left side, kicking up to the sky. Left knee opens to the side, draws back in, and then shift the left leg up to the sky, draw back down. So going for this external rotation and then that glute kick back. Working through the left side of the body, keeping both hips stable and still. hip bones pointing down towards the mat, and pushing the floor away, shoulder blades pulling apart. Staying aware of that core strength. Now we're going to extend that leg back behind us. We're going to flex through the foot, tap the toes down, lift back up. Flex and lower, flex and lift. We're focusing on keeping the torso as still as we can. So just hinging from that hip, we're keeping those shoulders square, those hips square. And then our last one, we're going to bend that knee in, squeeze up to the sky, kicking up, 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 up. And then extend that leg away, and then bend that knee straight back in. So reaching away, find that length, and then squeeze it all the way back in. Find that extension behind the back of that knee, and then drag that heel all the way back in. The whole time imagining that heavy weight on the end of that foot, creating that resistance. Our last one will squeeze that leg outwards and then lower it down to the mat, draw that knee in. We're back in our all fours. We're going to exhale, lift it off, step back to that plank, and then step in again. Like we did before, we're alternating the leg we start with each time, stepping out to the plank, and then stepping back into that hovered box. That torso staying strong. Pushing the floor away, keeping your breath going. Torso staying still. And we'll lower those knees down. Take a moment here while we'll rest in child's pose. Just letting the hips sink back onto the heels, relaxing the forehead down onto the mat. Take a moment and just slow down your breath. Inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Sending the breath to the back of the rib cage and to the sides of the rib cage, through to all parts of your body. And on your next exhale, we'll move out of that position. We'll rock forwards and come to lie on our stomach. We're going to reach those hands overhead. And then on the inhale, we're going to lift both the arms and the legs off the floor. Exhale, lower back down. Inhale, we lift, we find that length. Exhale, we lower back down. So going for these Superman lifts, moving both the arms and the legs at the same time. Finding that height. The next one, we hold it at the top. We're going to lift the right arm, left leg higher. Switch and lift the left arm, right leg. And switch. And switch, going for this swimming, keeping it nice and controlled to start, keeping those hips completely still and stable. Now option, speed it up. We're going to swim, 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 swim. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. And lower yourself down. Bring those hands underneath the shoulders, push back to child's pose position for a moment. To come straight out of that, swivel ourselves around, and we can remove that band from those thighs and bring it around the feet. We're going to go in for a little ab section just to finish. So we're going to come to lie on our back. The band is hooked around both feet. And then we're going to lift those legs to tabletop position, knees above the hips and shins parallel to the floor. We're going to interlace those fingers, bring them behind the head, and then lift the chest up off the floor, look between those thighs. Extend those legs away, draw the feet out a couple inches, draw them back in, and then draw those knees back over those hips. Again, we extend away. Open the band, close it back in, and then draw those legs back in. So we're going for this extension of those legs, the abduction of the hips, and using the core the whole time. So as we extend those legs away, we really have to focus on sinking that belly button more to keep that lower spine supported. Those shoulder blades staying lifted, looking between those inner thighs the whole time. Those elbows are staying wide, just in your peripheral vision. The next one time we bring those legs to tabletop, we're just going to extend one leg forwards and then draw it back in. Switch, extend the other leg, draw it back in. As you extend one leg away, think of the opposite bent knee staying still. So we're resisting that band. We're fighting to keep that knee bent, keeping it in the same position while the other one fights to extend as long as possible. The next time one leg is forwards, we're going to pulse that knee in, pulsing the bent knee in, squeezing in, switch, go for the other side, we pulse in, keeping that belly button low. Again, one more each side, we extend one leg, squeeze the opposite knee in. Keep breathing, one more on the opposite side, extend the leg away, and then pulse that knee in. Last 2 and 1. Then we can draw both legs back to a tabletop position. We're going to reach those arms on top of those knees and use that to help lift our torso higher. Shoulder blades are lifted. We're going to keep that torso still and reach those arms forwards. We're going to go for our 100. We pump those arms down. We exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep those arms moving. Keep that torso still. Keep the breath going. Looking between those inner thighs, sinking the belly button down. Reaching those fingertips all the way forward. Strength through those arms. A lot to think about, but just focus on the breath. The breath is the main thing. Sinking that belly button. Reaching forwards. Last push for the abs here. Give this everything. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lower that torso down. Nice work. Hug those knees in towards the chest. We can remove that band. Just rock up to a seated position. We're going to swivel ourselves around. And we're just going to loop our hands through the band so the band can come around our wrists. And then we can come to lie on our stomach with our arms just reaching overhead. Similar to what we did before now, just with the band for added resistance. If at any point you want, we can just remove that band. But when we inhale, we're going to lift the arms, the legs reaching up, and then exhale, lower back down. This time with the band, we can press out slightly into the band to get a bit more work through the arms, through the upper body, and through the shoulders. We're still focusing on lifting the arms and the legs at the same time. Our next one, we're going to hold it there. Go for that swimming again. Lifting the right arm, left leg. Then left arm, right leg. We switch and switch and switch. Option speed it up. We swim, 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 swim. We exhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. And then reach and lower back down. Everything at once. We can remove that band. Bring the hands underneath the shoulders. Push back to child's pose position. Stretch out through the lower back. Breathing into the lower back. Breathing into the rib cage. And just relaxing that forehead forwards. When you're ready, rolling up through the spine. We can just stretch through the abs, going for a cobra stretch or an upward dog, looking to the sky. And then one last child's pose, sitting back on those heels. And then we'll just take a moment to stretch so we can come to our backs. Hook one foot over the other knee. Thread those arms through, coming into the thread the needle stretch, just so we can stretch out the glutes. Since we did quite a bit of glute work today. Maybe a gentle rock side to side. Just sending the breath into that area. And then hugging that right knee in towards the chest, just shifting the right knee across the body. Reaching the right arm out towards the side and maybe looking towards the right hand. Feeling this nice spine twist stretch. And then gently pulling yourself back through the center. We're going to switch the legs over. So hooking that left knee this time over that right knee, coming into the figure 4 stretch for the left glute. Maybe a gentle rock side to side. And then unraveling to hug the left knee in towards the chest. And then drifting that left leg across your body. This time reaching the left arm out, looking towards the left. Feeling that spinal twist. And gently pulling yourself back through the center, hugging both knees in towards your chest. Going for some hip circles, circling outwards. And then circling inwards, opposite direction. And then rocking up through your spine, rocking to seated, and we're finished. Thank you all for joining me. Hopefully see you next time.